What is going on, trainers? Drumvillain here, bringing you some more Pokemon Go PvP content, and today we're looking at an Ultra League Premier team, and this is a team without any XL Pokemon in it either, but it does have two legacy moves, and that is going to be Frenzy Plant on Venusaur and Hydro Cannon on Empoleon. Good news is that they're both very cheap Pokemon to build in general if you haven't already built them. For Ultra League, they're both very strong, and I do recommend you get a hold of one, because even in a meta that's quite heavily dominated by XLs now, Venusaur and Empoleon are both really strong. Now, we did experiment with a couple of different lineups, trying to find something that worked before we settled on this lineup. So the couple of battles that you're going to see here at the start are actually back when I was running Roserade in the team in place of Empoleon. The team was in a slightly different order, but I found we were just a bit too weak to too many things. Roserade and Venusaur and Obstagoon are really strong, but they just didn't gel together quite as well as I wanted them to. But that's the game. You experiment and you find some things that do work, some things that don't work. And it wasn't a bad team by any means, but we certainly feel like the team was really improved with Empoleon and running Venusaur on lead. One more thing that's kind of outside the box for this team is that Obstagoon is running Hyper Beam. Now, most of Obstagoon's movesets are really strong. It has access to Cross Chop, which really helps out in matchups against steel types like Galarian Stunfisk and Abomasnow. It has access to Gunk Shot, which allows it to one-shot most fairy types if you get it to land. But Hyper Beam, as you can see here, bang, does massive damage. The Politoed's not expecting it, and we take the win in that match there. Hyper Beam obviously getting that same type attack bonus on Obstagoon because Obstagoon is part normal type, and that means it hits like an absolute truck. It will smash almost anything to pieces that it lands on. So we actually forgot to TM it off Obstagoon when we first started running this team, and then landed a couple of booms with it, and we decided to keep it around, and we actually found it was really useful over on the long run for this team. Now, on Obstagoon you can run any charge move combination that you want. I recommend you always run Night Slash, because Night Slash is really useful stab damage as well, but there's nothing quite as satisfying as taking an opponent by surprise and watching their Pokemon get beamed! One shot annihilated out of there, they're not expecting it, and you can take Switch in a lot of situations, or you can just get that extra damage that you need to take something out. One more thing to note about this team is that we are running a Shadow Venusaur on the lead. Now, I don't think you need Shadow Venusaur. I think you would actually be better without a Shadow Venusaur. Like, using a regular Venusaur is fine. You get the extra bulk, and it helps Venusaur out in some matches, just being able to take a few more hits. But I don't have a regular IV Venusaur built for Ultra League. I only have a Shadow one built, so that's what I'm using here. If you have a normal Venusaur, that's fine, and like I said, I think it will do better for you. Not to mention that the cost of building this entire team, all three Pokemon, is roughly the same or less in Stardust than building one XL Pokemon. So if you're short on resources, this might be a team that can work well for you. So with all the formalities out of the way, let's look at some battles with the full team. And we put a Lowen Muck lead, and that's pretty bad for our team, just because the Muck is going to be resisting the Frenzy Plants and the Sludge Bombs from Venusaur. So we swap out to Obstagoon, and we pull out an Alolan Ninetales. We're going to build up a lot of energy, throw a Night Slash, see if we can get a shield out of them, which we don't. We shield a Dazzling Gleam, which is big because that would one-shot us, and we're thinking, screw it, they must think we've only got Night Slash, so we're going to throw the Hyper Beam. If they don't shield this, it's going to take them out, bang! One shot, get out of there alone. The amount of Alolan Ninetales that do not shield Hyper Beam because they are not expecting it. They're expecting Cross Chop, which they can survive, or they're expecting Night Slash, which is resisted. So we're able to take Switch, which is absolutely huge, and we're going to be able to put some serious work in on this Muck. And I think we're going to threaten... No, we're going to build up to Hyper Beam and then throw Night Slashers because they're probably expecting another Hyper Beam right at this point. It would make sense for them to shield. Yeah, they're going to shield here. We're just going to spam a couple of Night Slashers off, do some chip damage, and then we can bring Empoleon in here, since Empoleon will be resisting the poison jabs. And we can probably farm them down if they don't swap out. Dark Pulse will hit us for a good chunk of change, but it's not going to be super threatening. So we're just going to chip away here, and we might shield here, because if this is a Dark Pulse, it will take us out. Yeah, so there's a decent shield there, I think, depending on what they've got in the back. So let's see. We've got quite a lot of energy built up on Empoleon here, and we will never know. the opponent backs out. I guess they're either weak to Venusaur or weak to Empoleon, but we take that win. GG. Taking Switch in that matchup might not have been super important since they backed out just from Empoleon, but this is a brilliant lead. Empoleon lead is fantastic, and also if they swap out, depending what they bring in, we don't necessarily have to save Venusaur, because Obstagoon does really well against Empoleon as well. The only risk here is that they might have an answer to Obstagoon in the back. They might have Charmer, they might have a Flyer. They're going to swap out into a Charizard, a Dragon Breath Charizard. So we're going to throw a Sludge Bomb, do some good damage on this, and then swap into Empoleon, and we should be able to farm this thing down completely. Hopefully it doesn't even get to a move. I imagine they had a Dragon Claw already, but we're trying to get to the Blast Burn. So now we've got Energy on Empoleon, we've got Switch advantage, and they've got a Machamp in the back. So this is kind of scary because Shadow Machamp will absolutely shred Obstagoon. It will punch through it, it will counter you down so fast with it being double super effective. It's a stab move, and Machamp is just pretty attack weighted. So we're going to bring in Venusaur here and take, I think we're going to shield this, maybe? Yeah, we're going to shield this as a cross chop, which is pretty unfortunate. And they're going to swap out into their Empoleon. We're going to bring in Obstagoon, catch the Hydro Cannon, which is, or Drill Peck, yep, sorry, because they're throwing against Venusaur, obviously. And we're going to farm down completely and hopefully make it to a Hyper Beam, because this is where you would want to have Cross Chop, because you could just throw a couple of Cross Chops and it would do enough damage to take out this Machamp. But we have to go for Hyper Beam, and that is the most overkill you have. I bet you've never seen a Shadow Machamp take so much damage from one move. I ran the numbers and it is a straight one shot from full health on a Shadow Machamp. For a non-super effective move, that is ridiculous damage. So, heading into the third match, and we get a Jellicent lead, and again, this is a really strong lead for this team because Obstagoon does well against it as well. But they swapped out into a Dragalge, so Dragalge does very well against Venusaur, and it does well against Obstagoon just because it's resisting the counters. So we figure we're going to bring in Empoleon, because Empoleon's the Pokemon on our team that really struggles with Jellicent. So if we spend Empoleon here, we don't have to worry too much about winning Switch, because both Obstagoon and Venusaur will wreck the Jellicent. And hopefully the extra oomph we've got left from dealing with that means that they can both take care of whatever their last Pokemon in the back is. We're able to win that in the Zero Shield, which I didn't know that Empoleon beat Dragalge in the Zero Shield. I figured it would be close, and they've got a Venusaur in the back. So we're kind of glad to see this with our Venusaur, because our Obstagoon would struggle a little bit with it. The Night Slashers do add up over time, but we're just going to chip away. We'll probably shield here, because we do not need shields for the matchup against Jellicent at all. Obstagoon will just beat Jellicent without shields. They tried to catch, and it was good timing on their part. If we would have thrown a Sludge Bomb there, we might have been in a little bit trickier of a spot. We're able to hold on to our energy, build up some extra, and then swap out to our Obstagoon, because even bubble beaming us into oblivion, this Jellicent cannot beat us. Here we are just going to be able to grind it down. The Night Slashers, even with them debuffing us, and if we don't get the buff, it's still not going to be enough for them. We're going to be able to chip them down, have some spare energy to put some work on the Venusaur, and our Venusaur has almost 2 Sludge Bombs ready and a shield to defend itself to make sure it can get them both off. So we're looking pretty good here. They do catch a Night Slash on their Venusaur, which is kind of, if they're doing well at catching, they're really grafting for that win. They're making us work hard for it, but we're going to swap into our Venusaur, throw our 2 Sludge Bombs straight away, and this also means that our debuff on the Obstagoon is reset, so we are no longer weakened from the bubble beams, so we should be able to deal with this now. We're going to save the shield for the Obstagoon, get rid of this Venusaur. Yeah, we get the Night Slash off. I was going to say we could counter down, but it's not worth investing that shield if we don't have to. And now we're in an even stronger position. This Jellicent can't do anything. Even if it had Ice Beam and surprised us with it, it wouldn't be enough to take us out. So even the time was coming up because that match dragged on, but GG's to the opponent. Good match. So if you see a Jellicent or an Empoleon lead with this team, remember, Obstagoon can take care of it as well if they swap out and you've still got a positive matchup with the Venusaur. Now, jumping into this game, we've got a Dragonite lead. This is bad news in terms of leads. We swap out into Obstagoon and they've got an Escavalier in the back. And we're kind of glad to draw this out just because Escavalier does well against... Well, Escavalier does very well against this entire team. It's probably the best core breaker for this team. It smashes Obstagoon to bits, it smashes Empoleon to bits, and Venusaur really struggles with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in Venusaur. We're not going to shield. Thank God that was an Acid Spray and not a Drill Run or an Aerial Ace. We're probably going to shield this because we need to get rid of this Escavalier. It would do too much work with the counters on Empoleon if we tried to farm it down with Waterfall. So we need to get this out of here and then ideally bring in Empoleon and just hope they don't have another Steel counter in the back. They've got their own Empoleon, which is really not looking good. But also if we lose this matchup, if we manage to get shields, we get their shield, they take our shield or whatever, we are able to farm down their Empoleon with our Venusaur and get a Sludge Bomb off on the Dragonite. There might be hope, we might just be able to do enough damage. So we're going to go ahead and throw this Hydro Cannon. This will get their Empoleon pretty low. And this is a bit of a misjudgment because they still have a shield and we're not going to be able to get to a move. And now we need to get to 2 Sludge Bombs to take them out. They've got a buttload of energy. There's nothing we can do. There wasn't really a win con there because we needed them to shield their Empoleon against ours. But they knew what they were doing. They knew their win con. Not much we can do there. So GG. Now that's only 4 games, but that is the last game of that set because the first game of that set I played with a different iteration of this team. It might have been the one with Roserade in still, but I like to show you guys the ELO gain and loss and just show you guys that these are set as they happen back to back. Don't get me wrong, I do like cherry picking matches sometimes if it helps show off a team's strengths and weaknesses, but sometimes I like to show you guys how a team plays honestly in sets as they happen in real order as such, so to speak. So this matchup, we've got a Venusaur mirror match and we pretty much have to stay in here. Venusaur does well against Obstagoon and Empoleon, so our best answer to a Venusaur is our own Venusaur. And this is a bit of a messy matchup because you're trying to sneak a Vine Whip through or trying to bait with a Frenzy Plant. But I think what we're going to do here is let this go now. Because they've let 2 moves through, they're super low, we can just farm down. And there's a good chance that a Venusaur lead might struggle with Empoleon or Obstagoon in the back, like it might struggle with a fighter because Venusaur is often used for its poison typing to resist counter damage. And they bring a Blastoise in, and we decide we're going to swap out to our Empoleon since they swapped aggressively into their Blastoise. We just got a feeling that maybe what they have in the back might be weaker to Obstagoon. Since Blastoise doesn't particularly struggle against fighters, we figure we're going to spend the Empoleon here and hope that Obstagoon can sweep what's in the back. So we've still got 2 shields on both sides, which is kind of scary. We shouldn't be able to farm this down with Waterfall, which is nice, and it's a Mandibuzz in the back. So we're looking pretty good here, just because the counter damage is neutral thanks to Mandibuzz's Dark typing, so Obstagoon can chip away pretty well. We're going to go straight for the Hyper Beam here. We're expecting them to maybe think we're going to throw a Night Slash or a Cross Chop. Bang! That's a massive amount of damage for an Ultra League XL Mandibuzz, and that pretty much secures the win for us here because now we can throw a Night Slash, get that last shield if we want. Maybe fish for the boost, but it's not necessary at this point. They've shown they have Aerial Ace, they're not going to be able to take us out. We do get the boost, which you always get the boost when you don't need it, right? That's the way of GBL, that's the way of RNG, it's the way it works, it just wants to troll you. But it's GG's to my opponent, well played, good match. Now there's a good chance we'd have been fine if we'd have stayed in with Obstagoon against the Blastoise and saved Empoleon for the Mandibuzz, but it was just, we just had a feeling that we might have been better with Obstagoon in the back, and it worked out either way. Now this is the Dream Lead, Swampert. Venusaur annihilates Swampert, and the Vine Whips do crazy damage when both Pokemon are actually Shadow. And then we make the absolute mess of the century. We swap in, they swap out into Scrafty, and we panic and swap into Obstagoon. And that was absolutely stupid. I think in that situation, we were desperate to save Venusaur and keep it ready for the Swampert because it's such a strong matchup. But Venusaur was our best answer to Scrafty, and Venusaur could have comfortably kept switch advantage against Scrafty. So really the play would have been just to stay in and then see what they had in the back. So we just absolutely wasted Obstagoon. Our Venusaur took some heavy damage. The Swampert's going to come in and we've got an energy advantage here. So we're going to throw a Hydro Cannon here just before they get to a potential Earthquake. And we get the shield, and I think what we're going to hope for here, are we going to shield this? We need to call this right. We call it's a Hydro Cannon. That is absolutely awful for us. We're able to get to that Hydro Cannon first. Will this be enough to take out the Swampert? It'll be close. Yeah, it's enough to take him out. So now we can put some serious work on this Talonflame. We're able to catch on Venusaur. This might clutch this game for us. It might not. I forget how much energy the Talonflame has. Yeah, we're able to get to a Hydro Cannon. We're going to take the win despite swapping Obstagoon into a Scrafty. We're able to take the win with this team. GG. Not to mention that that team had 2 XL Pokemon on it. So being able to beat that team with such a dramatic mistake just shows how strong some of the non-XL picks can still be in this meta. And of course, catching a move from a Talonflame is quite easy because obviously it incinerates such a slow move. You can guess with quite a lot of accuracy often when they're going to throw. But in this matchup we get a Jellicent lead and they're going to Bubble Beam us and then swap out into their own Venusaur, which puts us in a weird position. Just because this means now that like our Venusaur is the best answer to their Venusaur, so we can't really swap out, but also we're debuffed, so we're not going to do as much damage as we normally would. You can see that Sludge Bomb doesn't even quite do half. We're going to shield, and we shield a Frenzy Plant, which is absolutely awful for us. And we do need to win this matchup because we have to line up Obstagoon with the Jellicent. What we're going to do here is actually swap into our Obstagoon, so we know we can take this move no matter what, and then we can just farm this this down. And they've got a Stunfisk in the back, so Venusaur was their only answer to an Obstagoon. So now Obstagoon's able to run rampant because it can do a lot of work on Stunfisk and it can do a lot of work on Jellicent. We've preserved enough health on the Venusaur to be able to put a lot of work in on the Jellicent if it comes in. So we're just going to stay in here, throw some Night Slashes, chip away. We get the boost right at the end, and look how much damage Obstagoons, they were going for a farm down, and they realised they're not going to get it. They have to throw a Rock Slide here. I think we're going to bring in Empoleon just to throw the, yeah, just in case they had another Rock Slide and threw it straight away blindly. And now we've got Venusaur. We swap out into their Venusaur, we have a perfect farm down, and that seals the fate. We can just throw 2 Frenzy Plants, so the opponent concedes. GG. Ooh, I was getting a bit ahead of myself in that last game. I'm just happy to be back making content for you guys. So we're jumping into the next matchup, and what lead are we going to pull in this one? It's an Altaria lead. Now, Altarias are pretty rare in Ultra Premier. There's a lot of other XL Pokemon that people have prioritised building over Altaria, but I would rather it be a Dragonite, just because Dragonite you can risk, you can threaten them with an almost one-shot with a Sludge Bomb from Venusaur, whereas Altaria can definitely take the Sludge Bomb, and also there's potential for it to have, is it Moonblast that it got on the Community Day, which would do big damage to Obstagoon, and they're staying in when we brought in Obstagoon, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why they'd stay in or what they've got in back. Like whether both Pokemon in the back can't handle Obstagoon, but that wouldn't seem balanced as a team. We're not able to get that Night Slash off, which is really unfortunate. So now we're going to bring in Empoleon and go for a very aggressive farm down, because we're going to resist any charge move that this Altaria throws. They might get to one more Sky Attack before we're able to take them out. Not quite. We found them down. We've got 1.5 Hydro Cannons ready to go here, and they've got a Snorlax. I understand why they didn't bring a Snorlax into Obstagoon, but it makes me wonder what else is in the back here, especially if it's something that doesn't want to see Empoleon. We might be looking good in this match, we might not be. I really have no idea what to think in this game, just because they stayed in that matchup, unless they have something else that does really well against Venusaur, and if they do, it's too late, the damage is done, and they have an Escavalier. And Venusaur can do a lot of work against Escavalier, it can do a lot of damage, but it does just lose the matchup over time. And they land the Drill Run. We were hoping that they'd try and Acid Spray Betas, and then we could shield maybe a Drill Run afterwards, but they don't need to do that because, as you can see, the counters are adding up. Anyway, counters a very strong move, so even though we can shield now, they can still just chip us down, and we need to get to... They've still got a shield, so we'd need to get to another 2 Frenzy Plants after this, so we don't have a chance. We're staying in though, going down to the bitter end, but it's a GG all the same. Kind of surprised they didn't swap Escavalier into our Obstagoon, but it worked out for them, so I'm not going to question their judgment on that decision. They still managed to beat me. So, Venusaur mirror match again, and this opponent swaps out straight away into a Typhlosion, and it's a Shadow Claw Typhlosion. They did give Typhlosion access to Incinerate, but Shadow Claw is still a very strong, very versatile move. I wasn't sure how much the Blast Burn would do. I thought maybe I could survive it and still farm down, but apparently not. We're just able to take Switch, but we do have to give up a shield for it. Shadow Claw Typhlosion is really strong if you don't have something to really hard wall its energy off. But we're going to be able to get a move off on their Venusaur, but we are still down a shield at this point. They're going to swap to a Charizard, and we've got Obstagoon. Now, we might have been better bringing in Obstagoon against the Typhlosion because we were resisting the Shadow Claws, but you never know at the time, and what we should have done is waited a second to actually see what fast move Typhlosion was using before we swapped, because Empoleon would have absolutely shut down this Charizard. So you can see that that's the idea they're going for with their team. They're trying to bait out the water user with Typhlosion and then hopefully sweeping with Charizard, and this is looking very good for them. We're going to shield the Blast Burn, which is very nice for us, but they've still got 2 shields, and we are going to threaten to take them out with these moves, but we're just a bit too far behind on energy in terms of getting to enough moves to take them out. We're going to throw this Frenzy Plant here. We need them to shield this as well, and then survive a move and get to a Sludge Bomb, but I think they're at 2 charge moves now, potentially. Here comes 1 Sludge Bomb. Have they had another one? Yeah, they beat us by 1. So, if an opponent swaps out, especially into a Fire type against your Venusaur, if it was running Incinerate, you can wait a split second before you swap Pokemon, because the Incinerate damage takes a long time to register, and 1 Incinerate isn't going to be the end of your Venusaur anyway. It will do a lot of damage, but it's not going to absolutely ruin its potential for the rest of the game. And against a Shadow Claw Typhlosion, Obstagoon was the better shout, because you can tank a Blast Burn and the Shadow Claws are triple resisted, I think, on Obstagoon. It's dark and normal, so yeah, triple resisting, which is absolutely bananas. So we take another 3-2 set, and we're met with another Dream Lead in Swampert, and we're given a bit of a nightmare swap into Galvantula. Now, we don't really like Galvantula. It does well against Empoleon, it does well against Obstagoon, and it does well against Venusaur. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and throw a Sludge Bomb straight away, and then we're going to attempt to catch a lunge on Empoleon. This might be a ridiculously dumb decision, but we do catch a lunge, which is kind of nice, really. We're going to lose CMP tie, which is unfortunate because we are going to have to shield this. No, it's another lunge. They expected us to shield. We have got balls of steel in this match. We call the lunge because they're expecting us to shield, and now they have to swap out to their Swampert. They have to throw before we get to a Hydro Cannon. I mean, they didn't have to. We're double debuffed. They could have just farmed us down completely, really, for energy. Now we can get Venusaur locked back onto this Swampert. We're going to build up some extra energy because we knew that they were pretty much energy dry. Before we throw the Frenzy Plant, we are going to get a shield. So we're going to shield this because we're very close to another Frenzy Plant to get rid of this Swampert. And now we've put quite a bit of work in on this Galvantula. So we're hoping that we can take that out and then deal with whatever the last Pokemon in the back is with a 1 shield advantage. It's a Skarmory, which is not bad for us. It could be worse. This is a pretty level matchup actually, because the counters are... We get the boost. It's no longer a level matchup. Obstagoon is here to wreck house. We don't shield a Brave Bird, which is absolutely awful for us. They do try to catch on their Garvantula and don't pull it off, but obviously the counters are hitting for neutral and the Night Slashes are hitting for neutral, as well as all the Skarmory moves being neutral to Obstagoon, but with the boost the damage is just far too much. Them landing that Brave Bird and doing the swap out probably would have been enough to give them the win if we hadn't have got the boost, but because we did, it didn't matter all that much. GG's. I have chosen to bring you guys 3 sets of battles in today's video, just because it's nice to see more matchups, I think, if you're interested in the team and see how more different battles play out. So in this matchup we've got a Kingdra lead, and they're choosing to stay in, which is kind of unusual really. They must have something else that's weak to Venusaur in the back, I would assume. Kingdra tends to more often be a safe swap in Ultra League than it is a lead, but it's still a strong pick, especially if it's XL, and they do get the debuff with the Octazooka. So now this Frenzy Plant will not be enough to take out, but this is a Shadow Venusaur, it's going to do big damage, and we're going to get to another Frenzy Plant. We're just going to throw it to either get a shield or get them out of here. We do get the second shield, which is really crazy. So I think we're going to bring in Empoleon, just because we don't have to shield whatever this move is. If we do happen to get debuffed, which we do get debuffed, which is awful, it does give us a bit more farm. And now we're going to swap out to Obstagoon blindly, no matter what, to clear the debuff, and they have a Machamp back there, and they swap blindly into Clefable, which does very well against Obstagoon, but we're going to be able to land this Hyper Beam because they've got no shields left. Get beamed! And it's not enough to one-shot, which is really unfortunate. It would have been much cooler if it was a Gunk Shot. So the only hope now is to get to 2 Drill Pecks to take out this Shadow Machamp, because I think Shadow Machamp can take 1, and we didn't shield the Moonblast, thinking that we would have to shield a Cross Drop from Machamp, which was a dramatic misjudgment, and it's going to cost us that game. GG. We really should have at least thrown 1 Drill Peck just to see if it was going to be enough to KO, but I really don't think it would have been. So, Garvantula lead. This is awful. Like we said in a couple of matches ago that we hate it when a Garvantula swaps in because we don't know what to do with it. So when it's on lead and we don't even have energy advantage, it's even worse. So we're just going to stay in here. We're going to throw a Sludge Bomb here just before they get to another lunge. And we might try and do the same trick we did before with... No, we're not going to try and catch. We might let this go. Yeah, we'll let this go and then go for an aggressive farm down. Obstagoon will struggle to farm down. Garvantula's pretty bulky. So we're going to bring in Empoleon for the farm down, which might sound bananas, but also there's a good chance they're going to struggle with Empoleon in the back if they've got an electric type lead. So they've got a Mandibles that they bring in, and this isn't bad. The dark moves are neutral, which is unfortunate that we're not going to be resisting the charge moves. So I think we might swap out. We're going to stay in. We've got some serious Go Battle lag going on right now. It seems to catch up though, and we're going to swap to Obstagoon. We're not able to catch anything, but they swap in a Nidoqueen. And this is looking pretty iffy. Nidoqueen does pretty well against Obstagoon. The Poison Fang debuffs add up, the Poison Jabs add up. So we're just going to go straight for the beam. We're going to presume that they assume they can survive anything. Bang! It gets absolutely smashed to pieces, and there is no way they were expecting that. So now we're just going to chip each other down here, and it's a simultaneous KO in the Zero Shield apparently, if you land a Hyper Beam, which is good to know. And now we've got quite a lot of energy, and we've all still got 2 shields, so we use 1 on that foul play. One thing that's worth noting is that this is a Air Slash Mandibuzz, not a Snarl Mandibuzz. So it's not getting to charge moves at quite the same pace that a Snarl Mandibuzz would, and we're obviously resisting a bit extra damage. Now if they're not at a foul play now, we can throw both these Hydro Cannons back to back and take them out, although it looked like the Mandibuzz was one waterfall from being knocked out anyway, so we could have just thrown 1 more fast move. But either way, we take the win. GG's. Bet you guys thought I was clickbaiting you with my get beamed, right? You didn't expect any to actually land on opponents, but nobody expects the Hyper Beam. Now we've got a Gengar lead, and this is pretty bad, and it might seem silly to swap straight into Obstagoon, and maybe it is, but honestly, if you get rid of shields, Empoleon still does pretty well against Gengar. It's just really our Venusaur that tends to struggle, so we just swapped out, and we thought we'd be more likely to tempt out something We feel we've got a better chance of sweeping at the end with Empoleon, but the Venusaur shields a Hyper Beam, which is really unfortunate. I mean, to be honest, a Gunk Shot or a Hyper Beam would have done big damage there, so it makes sense for them to shield, I guess. They must have just been expecting it. Maybe they've been Hyper Beamed or Gunk Shotted before by an Obstagoon. And now we're going to bring in our Venusaur, just put in some work here. We lose CMP, we try to guess, and we lose CMP tie. This is really unfortunate. It's another Sludge Bomb, which takes us out. We lose all that energy, and we're going to surrender. We made an absolute shambles of that match. GG. We needed all the energy we could get on that Venusaur, and we just got a little greedy, and it cost us heavily. And sometimes you just make those mistakes, and you really are in an unwinnable position at that point. So we've now got a Venusaur mirror match lead once again, and they tried to catch, and we could have thrown a Frenzy Plant at this Stunfisk before we swapped out, but we decided to swap into Empoleon, and again, Obstagoon or Empoleon are good shouts, but we've got a feeling that they might have something else that's weak to counter users in the back, so we figure we'll swap in Empoleon, use it here. They're going straight for Earthquakes, which is really unfortunate. Well, it's a good play by them because there wasn't that much chance that we would shield twice, and we're hoping this is a Rock Slide. We should have thrown the Hydro Cannon sooner. No, it's a Rock Slide, it's fine. We're all good. And we got some energy to come out of this matchup with, so we can do some damage to this Venusaur. We're going to be able to land 2 Drill Pecks if they don't throw a Frenzy Plant pretty soon. So, yep, they're going to throw at the same time we get to the Drill Peck, which is nice, which uses up quite a bit of their energy, and we've got a lot of energy on our Venusaur to threaten, but they swap straight away and catch on an Aggron. And Aggron is an unusual, very spicy pick in Ultra League. It's very strong. It's good as a Smackdown user and good as a Dragon Tail user. I think it has access to Dragon Tail. And I can see why they wanted to bait out a counter user, because counter's double super effective against Aggron. So we're able to farm down completely, and we're just going to go for Night Slash spam on this Venusaur. We get the boost. Absolutely appalling. We don't need the boost. Any move at this point will KO. So, but we have 2 Night Slashes ready, and we're going to be able to take this win. That's a good game to the opponent, and we're going to be able to take another 3-2 set with this team, which, like I always say, if you can get 3 2s consistently with a team, it's a pretty strong team. Now you might be thinking, well, technically you haven't shown us 15 matches with this team. I'm going to show you guys. You guys want to see a win against a Talonflame lead with this team? I'm going to show you one. And usually I hate spoiling games in advance, but this is the match I'm going to leave you guys with, so you can check it out if you're curious how we're able to pull that off. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. The vast majority of my viewers are not subscribed, so help us get to that big 1,000 goal. Smash the subscribe button. I know it's cliche, but it does help out. If you're already subscribed, you're an absolute legend, and I will catch all you guys next time.